Let us drift back, 6 centuries ago, to the golden twilight of the Swahili coast. The Indian Ocean breathes in warm, salt-scented sighs against the shores of Zanzibar, and the island's trading town hums with the quiet industry of evening. The great wooden dhows, their sails furled like sleeping wings, rest in the harbor, their hulls still fragrant with cinnamon, cloves, and the deep, resinous scent of myrrh. The merchants have tallied their goods, the fishermen have mended their nets, and now the town exhales. This is not a story of sultans or conquests, but of the soft, repetitive rhythms of daily life. The scrape of a clay pot set over coals, the murmur of a mother singing as she braids palm fronds, the drowsy call of the muezzin mingling with the distant cry of a night heron. Here, in the fading light, we wander the narrow lanes of coral, stone, and plaster, where the air is thick with the perfume of coconut oil, wood smoke, and the sweet, earthy tang of cassava simmering in copper pots. The Swahili people, a tapestry of African, Arab, and Persian threads, have built a world of quiet harmony between land and sea. Their homes, tall and narrow with flat roofs, are made from coral rag and lime mortar, their doorways carved with intricate geometric patterns that whisper of faraway lands. Inside, the floors are swept smooth, covered in woven mats dyed with indigo and ochre. The evening lamps, small clay dishes of coconut oil with floating wicks, cast trembling golden pools against the walls. As the sun sinks below the horizon, the town settles into its nightly rituals. The fishermen return with their catches, their voices low and tired but content. The artisans, the weavers, the potters, the carvers of ebony and ivory, put away their tools, their hands moving with the slow certainty of routine. The children, barefoot and laughing just an hour ago, now yawn and lean against their parents, lulled by the rhythm of the waves. Tonight, we will move through these streets like a soft breeze, listening, watching, but never disturbing. Let the cadence of these forgotten moments carry you into rest. As the sun melts into the Indian Ocean, staining the sky in hues of amber and lavender, the harbor of Zanzibar sighs into evening. The great trading dhows, their sails now slack, rock lazily in the shallows, their hulls whispering secrets of distant ports, Mombasa, Malindi, even the faraway spice-scented shores of Gujarat. The day's last merchants, their voices low and weary, tally final bundles of cloves and coils of coir rope, while barefoot boys dart between them, carrying clay jugs of tamarind juice to quench the thirst of those still at work. The fishermen, their lean muscles gleaming with salt and sweat, haul in the last of their nets. The fibers, woven from coconut husk, drip onto the sun-warmed sand as skilled fingers pluck out silvery sardines, their scales catching the fading light like tiny coins. Some are set aside for the evening meal, others will be salted and left to dry on woven palm mats, ready for trade at dawn. An old man, his face creased like well-worn leather, sits on an upturned boat, patiently mending a tear in his net with a bone needle and twine. His hands move without thought, each knot a silent prayer for tomorrow's catch. Nearby, a late-arriving dhow from Pemba unloads its cargo, baskets of red mangrove crabs, their claws bound with twine, and great green-skinned coconuts, their husks still damp from the voyage. The crew, their voices murmuring in a blend of Swahili and Arabic, pass the goods to waiting traders, their laughter tired but warm. One man pauses to press a dried fig into the hand of a sleepy child clinging to her mother's skirt. A small kindness, unnoticed, as the world slows toward night. The air here is thick with the scent of brine and tar, of sun-bleached wood, and the faint, metallic tang of fish scales. Sand, still warm from the day, shifts underfoot as the last workers turn toward home, their shadows stretching long behind them. Some stop to rinse their hands and feet at the communal well, its water drawn from deep beneath the coral rock, cool and sweet against the skin. And as the first stars blink awake above the harbor, the dhows groan softly in the tide, their masts swaying like drowsy sentinels. The sea, now a sheet of darkened silk, murmurs against the shore, a lullaby for the town beyond. Beyond the harbor, where the coral stone lanes narrow and the scent of wood smoke curls through the air, the homes of Zanzibar's townsfolk welcome the evening. Here, behind carved wooden doors studded with brass, families gather in courtyards open to the sky, where the first stars blink down like distant lanterns. The day's labor is done, and now, in the golden glow of oil lamps, the rituals of the evening meal begin. In one such home, a woman kneels beside a clay hearth, her hands dusted with flour as she presses balls of dough onto a curved griddle. The ujazi, a flatbread of coconut milk and millet, puffs gently over the coals, its edges crisping to a pale gold. Nearby, a clay pot simmers with mtori, a fragrant stew of plantains, ginger, and the last of the day's fish, its broth thickened with ground cashews. The scents mingle in the still air, earthy, sweet, and faintly smoky. Her daughter, barely tall enough to peer into the mortar, grinds cardamom pods with a stone pestle, the rhythmic thud, thud, thud blending with the chirp of geckos in the rafters. The spice, precious and traded from distant hills, will be stirred into a pot of spiced tea, its steam curling like incense in the cooling air. A toddler dozes on a woven mat, his cheek pressed against a bolster stuffed with kapok, while his father returns from the well, the water jar balanced effortlessly on his shoulder. The house itself breathes with the evening, its high ceilings drawing up the heat of the day, its plaster walls still warm to the touch. The furniture is sparse but purposeful, low wooden stools worn smooth by generations of use, a carved chest holding linens dyed with indigo, and shelves of reddish terracotta bowls, their rims chipped from years of meals shared. In a corner, a woven basket holds yesterday's coconuts, their husks waiting to be shredded into tomorrow's cooking fires. As the family gathers, sitting cross-legged on mats around the central platter, no words are needed. The clink of a ladle against clay, the soft shush of bread torn and shared, the contented sigh of a child fed. These are the sounds of 1,000 evenings past, and 1,000 more to come. Above them, a bat flits through the open courtyard, its wings whispering secrets to the darkening sky. While most of the town settles into the quiet of evening, one woman still works by the pale light of the moon. Her name is Bi Asha, and her hands, rough with years of labor but moving with effortless grace, are never still for long. Tonight, like so many nights before, she sits in the open courtyard of her home, surrounded by bundles of dried palm fronds, their edges curled like the fingers of an old storyteller. The fronds, gathered at dawn when the dew still clung to them, have been drying for days in the shade, their green fading to a soft gold. Now, under the silver wash of moonlight, Bi Asha splits them lengthwise with her thumbnail, the fibers parting with a quiet snick. Her fingers begin to braid, over and under, the rhythm as steady as the tide. She is making a kikapu, a basket that will carry fruit to market, or perhaps cradle a newborn grandchild when the time comes. Around her, the tools of her craft lie scattered. A blunt knife for trimming stubborn fibers, a smooth river stone to press the weave tight, a clay cup of water to keep the leaves pliant. A half-finished mat leans against the wall, its geometric pattern emerging row by patient row, a language written not in ink, but in the memory of muscle and touch. Her neighbors know the sound of her work well. The scrape of fronds, the creak of her stool shifting as she leans forward to check her progress. These are the sounds that linger in the alley long after the bread ovens have cooled. Sometimes, a passing friend will pause in the doorway to exchange a few words, or a child will wander in, drowsy-eyed, to watch her hands move like shadows weaving the night itself. But mostly, she works in silence, her thoughts drifting as the palm leaves take shape beneath her fingers. The moon climbs higher, the stars turn in their slow dance, and the basket grows. One braid, then another, until at last, her hands still. She ties off the final frond with a knot worn smooth by tradition and sets it aside for tomorrow's sun to bless. Somewhere beyond the courtyard walls, a night heron calls. Biasha stretches her stiff shoulders, blows out the single oil lamp, and slips inside to sleep. The half-woven mat waits for her return, its pattern unfinished, its story yet to be told. While most of the town sleeps, a single light still flickers in a small workshop near the edge of the settlement. Here, where the scent of damp earth lingers even in the driest months, the potter Mzee Hamisi works late into the night. His hands, streaked with reddish clay, move with the quiet certainty of decades, kneading, centering, pulling the cool, yielding earth upward into shapes that will hold water, grain, and honey for seasons to come. The wheel before him is a simple thing, a wooden disc turned by a smooth stick inserted into its side. With each practiced motion, the mechanism emits a soft creak. 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 Like the call of a night bird hidden in the mangroves. The sound is as much a part of the town's nights as the distant waves. A large lump of clay, dug from the riverbanks at low tide and tempered with crushed seashells, spins hypnotically under his palms. Tonight, he shapes vibuyu, wide-bellied water jars with narrow necks, designed to keep their contents cool even in the fiercest midday heat. His thumbs press into the center, opening the clay like a flower blooming in reverse. The walls grow thinner, taller, guided by nothing more than the memory in his fingertips. Nearby, rows of finished pots dry on woven grass mats, their surfaces still rough from his trimming knife. In the morning, they will be burnished with a smooth pebble and set into the kiln, a dome of packed earth and broken pottery that will glow orange for hours as it works its alchemy. The workshop smells of wet clay and the faint metallic tang of the slip he uses to smooth the rims, a mixture of clay and water left to ferment in a gourd for days. His tools lie within easy reach, a bamboo rib for shaping curves, a piece of fishing net to imprint decorative lines, a seashell for scraping away excess. A single oil lamp casts his shadow large against the wall, its flicker making the drying pots seem to breathe in the stillness. Outside, the occasional rustle of a palm rat in the thatch or the distant cry of a night heron marks the passing hours. Mzee Hamisi hums as he works, a tuneless sound, more vibration than melody, as his wheel turns and turns and turns. By dawn, when the first fishermen pass by his open doorway, 6 new jars will stand in patient rows, their mouths open to catch the morning light. As the moon reaches its zenith, a different kind of work begins along the flat rooftops of Zanzibar's stone houses. Here, where the night breeze first stirs the drying laundry and the stars seem close enough to touch, the town's watchmen begin their slow patrols. They carry no weapons heavier than a walking stick, for their true tools are their eyes, accustomed to every shadow, every irregularity in the familiar nighttime landscape. Old Bakari, his back slightly stooped from decades of climbing stairs, moves methodically from roof to roof. In his hand swings a pierced tin lantern, its light casting delicate star-shaped patterns on the plaster walls as he walks. He pauses now and then to adjust a clay tile loosened by the afternoon rains, or to nudge a sleeping cat away from a basket of drying squid. Below him, the town sleeps, a patchwork of courtyards and alleyways, some still glowing faintly with the embers of cooking fires. The rooftops themselves tell stories of the day now past. Here, a scattering of tamarind seeds left by children snacking between chores. There, a half-woven palm frond mat abandoned when the light grew too dim to continue. In one corner, a line of small clay figurines, a camel, a fish, a dhow, left to harden in the night air by a potter's apprentice. Bakari smiles as he steps around them, remembering his own childhood games played in these same spaces. Every hour or so he exchanges a quiet call with the other watchmen across the rooftops. Not words, but a soft shh or the tap of a stick against a parapet. The signals pass like ripples through the night, assuring all is well. Once, he stops to help a young mother retrieve a wayward chicken from a neighbor's rain gutter. Another time, he shares a sip of spiced coffee with a sailor keeping late watch on a beached dhow. As the night deepens, the watchmen's footsteps grow fewer, their lanterns burning lower. The sea wind rises, carrying the scent of distant rain, and one by one, they descend to rest, leaving the rooftops to the cats and the slowly turning stars. Long before the first streaks of light touch the eastern horizon, while the night air still holds the coolness of vanished stars, the bakery near the market square begins to stir. Inside the low, smoke-darkened building, Moana Aisha, her hands and forearms dusted white with flour, is already at work. The great dome oven, its clay walls still radiating yesterday's heat, yawns open like a patient beast awaiting its meal. She begins as her mother taught her, and her mother before her, by feeding the fire. Criss-crossed sticks of mangrove wood, carefully dried in the rafters for weeks, catch quickly in the oven's belly. The flames lick upward, their light painting the curved walls in fleeting patterns as Aisha kneads the day's first batch of dough. The mixture, coarse ground sorghum flour, a pinch of salt from the pans up the coast, and just enough well water to bind it, yields under her knuckles with a soft, living resistance. By the time the oven reaches the right heat, tested by the old method of tossing in a handful of flour and counting how quickly it browns, the first loaves are shaped and resting on woven palm leaf trays. These are not the delicate, honey-drenched pastries of the Sultan's kitchens, but honest makatewa kumimina, thick, round breads with cracked tops that will sustain fishermen and farmers alike through the morning's labor. As she works, the bakery fills with the perfume of scorching flour and hot clay, a scent so deeply woven into the walls that no amount of scrubbing could remove it. The wooden peel, its edge blackened from years of use, slides loaves into the oven's hottest spots with practiced sweeps. Outside, the first birds begin their tentative songs, and somewhere down the lane, a donkey brays sleepily at the approaching dawn. Aisha hums as she works, a tuneless melody that mingles with the fire's crackle. The rhythm of her tasks never varies: knead, shape, bake, rest, a cycle as old as the stones of Zanzibar itself. By the time the muezzin's call drifts over the waking town, her first 50 loaves will be cooling on reed mats, their crusts singing softly as they meet the morning air. As the first true light of dawn stains the harbor waters pink, another sound joins the morning chorus: the measured tock-tock-tock of wooden mallets along the shipyards. Here, where the beach slopes gently into the shallows, the skeleton of a new dhow rests on greased logs, its ribs curving upward like the bones of some great sea creature. The master builder, Bwana Simba, runs his calloused palm along a freshly shaped plank of teak, checking for imperfections only he can feel. The wood, imported from distant Malabar at great cost, has been soaking in seawater for months to make it pliable. Now, as the sun's warmth loosens the fibers, Simba's crew coaxes the board into position with ropes and wedges. Steam rises from a pot of bubbling coconut husk tar nearby, the smell sharp and resinous, ready to seal the gaps between planks once they're nailed in place. An apprentice turns the sticky mass with a flat stick, his movements drowsy with repetition. This dhow, Mvua ya Kwanza, first rain, has been taking shape for nearly a year. Every piece follows the old ways: the ribs carved from resilient mango wood, the pegs fashioned from water-resistant neem, the sails yet to be stitched from woven palm fiber. Simba pauses to trace the decorative notch he carved yesterday, a wave pattern that will mirror the ship's wake, before nodding to the crew to continue. Around him, the shipyard stirs to life. Old men sort through baskets of iron nails, testing each for rust. Boys too young for open water practice their knots in the shade of the hull, their fingers moving through the motions of bowlines and figure eights. A woman from the town delivers a basket of fresh chapati, wrapped in banana leaves, her footsteps silent in the sand. By midday, the heat will drive the workers to rest in the palm-thatched shelters. But for now, in the cool blue hour of morning, every mallet strike rings clear across the harbor. The rhythm builds, tock, 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 steady as a heartbeat, as the Mvua ya Kwanza slowly remembers how to float. In the cool back room of a whitewashed house near the customs yard, where the air smells of dust and dried ginger, an old man sits cross-legged before his life's work. Bwana Daud's ledger, its leather cover worn smooth by decades of handling, lies open across his knees. The pages, handmade from mulberry bark, are covered in precise columns of Arabic script, black ink fading to brown where the earliest entries were made in his father's hand. Today's task is the seasonal reckoning. A brass balance scale rests at his side, its pan still bearing traces of turmeric from yesterday's measurements. Carefully, he checks each entry against the physical tokens in his carved sandalwood box. A clove bud for every sack exported to Oman. A shard of cowrie shell for bales of cotton sent north. A tiny scroll of copper wire denoting the rare musk purchased from inland caravans. His fingers move these markers like prayer beads, ensuring no debt or profit is forgotten. The ink he uses is his own formulation, gallnut extract mixed with gum arabic, kept liquid in a clamshell inkwell. His reed pen, its tip sharpened just this morning, moves without hesitation. The numbers tell stories beyond their values. A poor harvest in Malindi means higher prices for Zanzibar's cinnamon. Unrest in Hormuz has delayed the pearl shipments again. These are patterns he has seen before, cycles as predictable as the monsoon winds. Outside, the heat of midday presses against the shuttered windows, but here in the dim light, time moves differently. A gecko scuttles across the ceiling beams, pausing to eye the dried dates on Dodd's writing tray. Somewhere in the house, a servant grinds cardamom for the afternoon coffee. The rhythmic scrape of mortar against pestle, a counterpoint to the scratch of pen on paper. When the ledger is at last balanced, Bwana Dowd leans back against the cushions, removing his wire-rimmed spectacles. He allows himself one small luxury. A single line of poetry penned in the margin. The sea remembers what the land forgets, before closing the book with a sigh that is neither weary nor satisfied, but simply complete. The brass scales chime faintly as he puts them away, their song lingering in the still air like the ghost of a transaction. As the sun dips low over the Indian Ocean, painting the coconut grove in stripes of gold and shadow, the children of Zanzibar claim these last moments of light for their own. Here, where the trade winds stir the palm fronds into a slow dance, the worries of adults do not reach. A group of boys kneel in a circle, their game of bayo nearly forgotten as they argue over the last move. Their carved wooden board worn smooth by generations of small hands. Nearby, two sisters practice the steps of a wedding dance they saw last moon, their bare feet raising puffs of dust as they twirl. The younger one stumbles, giggling, her ankle bells jingling like a startled bird. Their rhythm is set by the distant thump-thump of mortar and pestle from the village. Someone preparing the evening meal. But to them, it might as well be drummers sent from the Sultan's court. Up in the branches, a daring climber retrieves an abandoned toy. A little dhow carved from mango wood, its sail fashioned from a scrap of faded indigo cloth. He blows the dust from its deck before sending it skimming across the packed earth like its namesake skips over waves. The game is simple. Whoever's boat travels farthest wins the right to pretend they're the famed Captain Ibn Majid for tomorrow's adventures. The grove itself bears witness to these rituals. The trees' scarred trunks tell of 100 such games, notches marking growth spurts, initials carved in moments of importance known only to children. Fallen coconuts become fortresses. A length of frayed rope transforms into a mythical sea serpent. As the light fades, the shadows stretch and merge, until the laughing figures seem to move through a world twice its daytime size. One by one, mothers' voices call from the footpaths, not sharp, but lilting, the tones wrapping around names like the evening mist wraps around the mangroves. The children go reluctantly, dragging their feet through the dust, still whispering plans for tomorrow. The last to leave, a girl no taller than the goats she herds, pauses to arrange 3 white shells in a careful row beneath the largest palm. A message only her friends will understand when dawn comes again. And so the day closes as it began, with the sea sighing against the shore, the palms nodding their great heads in approval, and the faint, lingering warmth of the sun stored like a secret in the coral stones underfoot. Tomorrow will bring its own rhythms, its own bread to bake, its own nets to mend, its own stories to weave. But for now, the island exhales, and the stars blink awake, one by one. And so our journey through 15th century Zanzibar comes to a close, not with fanfare or finality, but like the gentle ebbing of the tide. May these whispers of ordinary lives, lived centuries ago, linger in your thoughts as softly as coconut oil lamps flicker against coral walls. And may they carry you into peaceful dreams,